Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Here in January, we are starting the new year with the theme of reality check, that idea of where the beginning of resilience, awareness, our personal journey for excellence begins. And today with me, I have Keri Lynn as my guest. Thank you for joining me, Keri. Please tell us more about you.
Hi, Tiffany. It's great to be here. I definitely love the idea of this podcast and being resilient mother. That is definitely a thing. A little bit about me. I call myself the Wealth Alchemist. I like to help people to overcome their relationship with money and wealth. And I do that from a very multidimensional perspective. We look at not just your mindset, because a lot of people might talk about money mindset, but then also how does it show up in your emotional field, your energetic, your physical experience of life, and your spiritual reality. And yeah, that kind of sums me up, I'll say, for now.
What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience means to me, when you get knocked down, you get back up again. Like, how many times can you fall and you get back up again? But then also there's a part of me that is like, in order to succeed, we get to be like, it's in the failures, it's in the hard parts, it's in the, I don't even like to call them failures, but it's in the parts where life gets really freaking tricky and challenging that we really get to find ourselves and know what we're made of, you know? And I think the other thing to say about that is, I always say, fail forward fast. Right? Like, the faster we actually go through these points, which create a lot of resilience in our life, then the faster we get to the place we want to go. So many people are afraid to fail, which also often leads to a desperate need. I don't like the word desperate, sorry, a need for resilience. And people stay in a safe world, which isn't really that safe.
You're willing to free fall so you can bounce. Yeah.
Right. I'll just stay here.
The deeper you fall, the higher the rebound. So the more willing we are to just let gravity take its reins, the higher we can fly. It's like that saying of, what if you fail, but what if you soar?
Right.
And giving yourself permission to have wings and know that you're going to catch yourself. And I think, with the changes of the years, new innovation, technology, AI, we're all kind of facing like what we really are made of, and learning that a lot of it actually has to do with the inner work of who we are and who we are as individuals and our journey and how we're facing life and how we choose to face life. And with that, I'd love to transition into our subject for this month, because it sounds like you've been through some stuff. And so we're talking about reality check. Like, what brought you into the field that you're doing, or where in your life did you start experiencing that journey of resilience for yourself?
Ooh. Okay. So it's interesting because I would say I've been doing this work for 18 years, long time. I don't know, a long time, a long ass time. I've been in this world, and I've been doing it for a long ass time. And so it wasn't really that which brought me, like, there wasn't really a point of resilience that brought me into the work. But what I can say is, about 3 years ago, I wrote my second book called The New Wealth. The New Wealth, Magnetise Abundance, Hold Your Wealth and Leave a Legacy. I also launched my podcast that year called The Wealth Alchemist. And when I wrote that book, it really pivoted me into standing in this message a lot more. But also when I wrote that book, it was a moment of realizing, so at the book, basically, I take you from where we are in our current financial system to a reality that I believe can be possible, which is, what if we could actually have infinite abundance, bliss, joy? Like, in my world, the way that I look at the world, if we are all programmed to believe that we are in lack, scarcity, fear, judgment, shame, which is really what the programming is around money, humanity, relating, all sorts of things right now, right? From the top down, then if it's just, it's just the way that it's just the way that we've been programmed to believe, right? We've been conditioned to believe these things are true. And if we can believe these things are true, it's equally as easy to believe that I can live in a state of abundance, bliss, joy, peace, love, gratitude, all of these things, right? Vitality, health. And it's the programming that we're taught that says to us that we can't. And so when I got to the end of this book, I was like, well, if this exists, because it's just as easy to have this as it would be the other, then what's stopping us from having it? And so
Mm.
for me, it's a personal journey. Like for me, we can't change the global planet, the global thought process, the global conditioning from saying, oh, let's go change the world externally. It's like it has to start from each of us. And
Yeah.
so to look at that, I then looked at my life and I went, well, what's stopping me from having this? And I looked at my life at the time, and I launched a book I became an international bestseller in 3 countries, and number 3 in the UK, so in Germany, US, and Australia. And I launched my podcast. It's actually on hiatus at the moment. I'm about to relaunch a whole new podcast, but it's an international top charting podcast. I had from the outside, the marriage, I had the kids, I had all the things, right? All the things that look right. Doing the 5-figure launches for my business, the whole thing. And on the inside, I was like, but I'm not happy. I'm miserable.
Mm.
And what's the thing that's stopping me is my relationship, my marriage. And it was really messy on the inside. It looked beautiful. And like so many things were great about it from the outside, but on the inside, bad news. And
Yeah.
so from that place, it was like, well, what do I need to do in order to shift into this reality? Well, I have to figure this out, which eventually led to going through separation. We are currently in the process, almost 2 years now of separation, but we're currently in the process of divorce. And it was, as you know, single mama, it's a deep point of resilience as we go through these phases, right?
You find out what you're made of. All of a sudden, it's all on you again, from taking out the trash to making sure all the bills are checked off. Yeah. And if you weren't doing it before, you are now.
Oh, yeah. And there ain't no one else going to help you. So, yeah. So that was, to me, that was one of the biggest points of resilience. And I think ever since then, it's interesting. One of the things you said earlier was the deeper you fall, or the words you use, the deeper fall, I think, and the higher you rise, or the bigger the up. And one of the things that I have really found since then in dating, right, in dating is, or in all the heartbreaks that have come with that. I also ended up divorcing my mom at the same time, week by week, basically, which was an intense experience. Talk about resilience, going through both of them at the same time. And the more that the pain would come, and the more that I would surrender into the pain that came from any one of the experiences that has come, the tears, when we allow them to go to the deepest points of those tears, what I have found is, if we allow ourselves to truly feel the heartache and the pain that I've honestly had never felt so deeply in my life, the other side of it is there is so much love. There is such a heart opening, and there is so much love for myself. I've never loved myself. And I don't mean that in a superficial way, right? When you have you, like, you got to love you. You don't have to, but I got to say, it would be a lot harder if you didn't. Right?
And I love what you're saying, because I think people have to realize you have to let go, because you have to make room for the other. You can't hold both. You can't be sitting on the fence. There are things you have to release in order to make room for what's meant for you. And that can be scary, because your whole world can change in the process of letting go. It means people can go, it can mean the comfort and safety that you once had can go. But when you get to the other side of truth and that alignment, and finally feeling the flow of who you were meant to be, nothing can replace that. And then who you attract, and then the opportunities that come all start to make sense. I really think that, we look back in hindsight and it's 2020, but at the time we may be pulling our hair out going, what is going on? Why am I going through this? And it's important just to know there's another side to it. And it may not look the way that we thought. It may be messy, or it may come in a solution that we didn't expect, but we have to open up to it. And I love to say that I would rather have my heart broken open to the empathy and to the pain of others than to be ignorant to that pain. I would rather be able to have this conversation with you and relate and understand and validate someone as a coach, as a mother with my children, some of the experiences they've gone through, because I went through them. I could be the person that they needed me to be, the person I didn't have in those situations. And then I'm grateful. For this whole crazy, messy journey. And I'm still in the messy middle of some of it. You don't arrive, right? You're always evolving. It's always changing. But if you're resilient, you keep going. You keep writing.
I think to add to that is, the more that you open your heart to it. So for me, I have 2 pieces of this. Like, for me, as I open up to love again, it's like, you could stay closed. You could, but at the end of the day, I'm going to get hurt when you meet new people, and you've got to be willing to be like, is my heart willing? Can I know that I can hold my heart, that no matter what they do, I've got me? Right.
Yeah.
And on the other piece of that is the more that you allow yourself to experience it, the less pain it actually creates.
Mhm.
Right. And so like a year ago, speak of resilience, a year ago, the guy I was dating got into bed with my best friend. Literally, we were having the conversation. I was finding out about it a year ago today. Like legit, right? So funny that we're having this conversation. It was a moment. It was probably one of the most shocking moments of my life. When that happened, the pain was so great. It was so great. And like the confusion and everything. And then all of a sudden, like 2 days later, I found myself laughing. And I was like, wow, you've gotten somewhere, Keri, when you can laugh at the situation 2 days after it. I'm ready to write this book. And the next book is called It Ends With Me, because I was like, it's all about changing these generational conditioning, these patterns that we have in relationships, because, like it has to end somewhere. We get to make those choices. I just laughed. And it's like one of those things that I say because, I the reason I wrote this book, It Ends With Me, was really about the fact that I thought I had a mental health issue, but really I had a relationship issue.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And when we can allow ourselves to then go into those places and go, like, for me, I had been in those places where like that would have taken me down for months on end. I don't know anyone else who's listening, right? That if something really nasty happens to us, because that was not pleasant to live with, it can mean that like mentally we end up in a really dark place for a while. And the one thing that I've learned that I think that comes deeply with resiliency and the fact that you can face your stuff more and more and more and more often is that it hurts. You move through it faster. You go, okay, that's the thing that happened. Now I can stay stuck in this hole and I can give my life and my energy to these people who don't deserve it anymore. Right? Because that's ultimately what we're doing when we stay stuck in the pain and the hurt and the looping stories in our head and all these things. We're giving them the energy and they're not necessarily thinking about us, right? They're not necessarily in pain, and it's they move on.
We're just hurting ourselves because we're holding on. We won't let go.
Right? And so like the more that we do this, I feel like the more that you just go, okay, that's a thing. Now my choice is whether I stay, whatever the thing is. And like part of the resiliency comes in being able to sit in those emotions and go, feel them and move them, and then realize that once they're released out of our system, we have more freedom and they don't have to stay stuck, which means that we can move forward.
And that the power was within us the whole time. And also what we created was ours. Right. Taking responsibility for, I created this.
I created this.
To create something else.
No more. Like, seriously, I thought this was bad enough. Right. But then ever since then, like, there hasn't been that thing because I made a choice in that moment that was not going to be my reality anymore. And I was going to work my way through making new choices in relationships that meant that I wasn't going to attract that again.
Yeah. Well, you're braver than me. I haven't started really dating again yet. So I will be there soon. God
help you.
But I know if I don't, I'll be alone, and I don't want to be alone. Who does? Right. And so, but being in the season of mom, like I really feel the need to put my kids first too. But there's that balance too, because I've got to put myself first to be my best, to be available to them. And so it's kind of, it goes around, you got to be full and overflowing in order to give to anyone. And if you don't know how to fill your own cup up, well, you certainly can't rely on other people or other things to do that. That's just, you're in a famine, like looking for an oasis in the middle of the desert. Like you have to fill yourself. No one can do it for you.
No, it's true. How old are your kids?
So I have 13, 11, and 3 at home at the moment. So yeah, it's pretty intense. And the age gap gets interesting. We find fun ways to make that work. Like at Christmas, we did Elf on the Shelf, and the older ones had the most fun with being a part of that, so that we could bridge kind of the age gap with holiday a little bit. And I get creative and innovative, but my teenager challenges me for sure on, redefines what being a good mom meant in my mind and how I show up. And I apologize to my kids all the time. So I'm like, I'm still figuring this out too.
Mine's 14 and 11 and a half. And my 14-year-old all the time, I'm sorry, buddy. I totally messed this up. And he's like, it's okay, mom. It's not your fault. I'm like, well, this kind of was my fault. Or you're right, this came from this many places back, but still I did this thing. Or it's not really my fault because it's the other person doing that, but still it sucks.
Just know I love you and my intentions are I love you and I'm doing my best. So, but I'm a work in progress too. I'm only human, okay? So,
right. But I think it's such a beautiful, ultimately, if we talk about resiliency, I think that's a really beautiful piece of resiliency is showing our flaws to our kids. I think, I was raised in a place where we had to be perfect and not like, and wear that mask of perfection, for me and my parent and my mom, at least for sure. And then that impacts all of us. But then also through that mask of perfection, there isn't perfection. And so they were not actually taught to have conflict. We're not actually taught to say, you know what, I messed it up, but it's okay. I'm going to get back up. I messed it up, but here's the next step. Oh, I messed up. I don't know how to do the next step. Mom, like how many times does my kid go to me and he's like, well, I messed this up, but I'm like, well, you don't beat yourself up. Like, what's the next step? Or the fears that come up because they don't know how to communicate, but that comes because we teach them through our own mess ups of, yeah, well, I didn't die messing that one up.
You're not good at either. Yeah, I think growing up with the expectation of perfectionism that you kind of have this feeling that failure is fatal. Like, oh, well, now this is the consequence that you're stuck with, or you can't change, or you're just this way. And I really steer clear of people like that now that or even have that language because I know it's not true. Our brains are meant to evolve and change. So whatever I focus on, that's what I'm going to become. And that's my choice every day. And I really hope my kids get the opportunity to see me be my best and see me fail and get back up because how else are they going to know how to do it? I certainly didn't know. I was very sheltered. And so the first time somebody pulled the rug out from under me, I had no clue what to do and it left me vulnerable. And I don't want that for my kids. And as hard it is to be a divorced parent, I start to realize they are learning lessons I wish I had learned at their age so that I could have that wisdom moving forward. So yeah, our life might be tougher. It's not perfect. They're not spoiled with all the perfect things or what I imagined motherhood would be like, but it's what's meant for them so that they can succeed in this ever-changing world. And so they can make different choices. They can help break that generational pattern because they see what it is and why they don't want it and why I'm breaking it as well.
100%.
If I don't show that, how are they going to know what I'm even working on? If I'm not honest with them, how are they going to know why? Oh, why did mommy do this? But now she's changing to this. And whatever consistently shows up the most is going to be where they see the result.
Absolutely. It's interesting because the thing that's coming to me, because money stuff, right? As I'm hearing this, like one of the things that I think a lot of people don't move through separation or divorce is the money stuff and like the fear of failing and the fear of not making it, right? If we talk about the same resiliency, right? Like we don't feel like we have the resilience to make the money ourselves. We don't feel like we have the resilience. The thing that came to you actually when you said failure was like, we feel like we've failed in money before because who here who's listening has not failed in some stupid money thing that we've done before. Oh, yeah. Like, are you alive? Because if you're alive, you've probably done something stupid with your money.
Bankruptcy, no credit for 7 years, learned a lot. So.
Right. And so I think it's really interesting. Like, I love that you said that. Not that you went through it.
Yeah. Well, that was the first divorce. I have 2 under my belt. So, hey, that's a whole
She's a pro at it. But it's true, right? Like it's a big thing that the fear of the failure of it and that I'm never going to get through this. And at the same time, like it's another step in that space of resilience that we learn from those mistakes and that sometimes we got to leap and just trust that it's going to work out. Because I say like my kids definitely, I'm like with you in that place that my kids definitely don't have the same things that they did when we had 2 incomes coming together. But they're happier.
They have me.
Right? They're happier. They're far better off. And eventually that can be there again. Right. And that's the thing. It's like, just because it's this way now doesn't mean it's this way forever. Right. It's this way right now. And like, we continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow.
That's how we build muscles. You don't start with the 20-pound weight or the 50-pound weight. You'd rip and tear that muscle to shreds. You start with the 5 and then the 10 and then the 15, and it's putting in those reps and building that muscle. And resilience is definitely building the muscle. But I think learning money skills too, for me, I kind of got thrown into it, but it's the little daily things that you do every day. Maybe you don't have $100 to put in investments right now, but maybe you could start saving $1 and just start exercising the muscle and prove to yourself that I can save. Now, you don't have to say how much you're saving, but hey, you're saving. That's starting the muscle in the right direction. And then you can add more, and it gets easier and it gets easier. But money isn't this elusive thing. And I definitely love what you said earlier about abundance, because the more I've been around entrepreneurs and those that have wealth, really have this understanding that there is enough for everyone. We're a worldwide community now. There is plenty of opportunity. It's just a matter of you deciding you have enough value to add somewhere to someone and making yourself available. But if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you? Like, if you don't show up with confidence and you don't show the value, then that's not going to translate. And money blocks are kind of a new thing that I didn't even know was a thing till I met a money coach, I think last year. And I'm like, that's a thing? There's money blocks? Tell me more. I want to know more on this right now.
So it's the thing. It's funny because I actually did a clear recently. So I do on, all this work, and I do this emotional clearing work in different levels of clearing. And I did a clear recently on financial manipulation. And it's really It's really fascinating, because I'm going to say, if you've been through divorce twice, there's probably somewhere in here that someone has been financially manipulated, somewhere along the way. And what I found was, when I started talking about it, is that most people, like, not knowing about money mindset, don't even realize that this is a thing. Like emotional abuse is a thing, mental abuse is a thing, physical abuse is a thing. But even still, right, we're still in a place where mental and emotional abuse isn't quite a thing. You and I breaking the generational conditioning, right? But I can't take my kids away from somebody because they are mentally and emotionally abusing them. That's not a thing by the court system, right? But
I can qualify for counseling under domestic abuse for financial abuse.
I didn't know that. Can you, with financial abuse? Because I was going to say, most people don't actually realize that the next piece is financial abuse, and it happens from a global scale down into our relationships with spouses, with kids, with mothers, with business, with our bosses, right? A lot of people get manipulated with their, I don't have a job. So what's the thing? A salary.
Salary. Yes. Wage, salary. What am I worth to do this job for you? How am I? Yeah. What value am I going to add?
Yeah. I didn't know that about financial abuse. You can actually get
some services. Yep. Yeah. During COVID, actually, I sought out. I'm very proactive. So I didn't expect to become a single mom of 3. And some people know that story, others don't. But I was proactive. I went to my university and got free family counseling to learn how to do that as a single parent. But I also had PTSD from all the trauma, abuse, abandonment that I'd been through. And I recognized that, and I wasn't going to let that stop me from where I wanted to go next. So I sought resources, and they qualified me under the fact that I had the other kinds of abuse, but they also listed financial abuse. And I found that very interesting, because that is an area, I think, with women that we need to be more empowered in, and can be a real turning point. Like, I'm teaching my daughters now, it's really important to get their education, to have their own money, to have their ability to manage the money, not rely on somebody else. I was raised in a way that's like, oh, just keep yourself pure, get married and stay married and you'll be fine. Oh, well, that is definitely not what happened. And then I was left going, okay, how do I manage this? And definitely the first divorce, the way it was handled, who handled it, which wasn't me actually, really taught me a lot. And getting the bankruptcy also was not completely, that could have been avoided. I put my trust in other people who manipulated the situation and left me in a situation I had to declare bankruptcy so that they could control me. And when I finally dawned on me that I was being controlled because I wasn't financially literate, I made it an effort to get smart about it so that I would not be in that position again. And I don't wish that on anyone, especially my girls. I think it happens too often to women that they get in a situation where they think they're going to be like a trophy wife, or nothing against trophy wives. Not my thing. I'm from Montana. We get in the dirt. We do the work. But just this idea that you're going to be subject to somebody financially. It can be a beautiful thing if you're raising kids and that's the agreement. You're going to be home and take care of the kids, and you have a support husband. I'm not against traditional family at all. Just not my experience. But because I wasn't in the right relationships, and because I did not have the right tools in place to not be manipulated and not to be in compromising situations. And it took me a while to realize that I was doing that. But I also have to recognize I did the best I could with the knowledge that I had. And I was not well prepared on purpose. I was almost prepared to fail because somebody else wanted control. And that's my experience, maybe more with narcissists. And then I realized I was still attracting narcissists, which meant I have to do the work, because that was unfortunately my norm. That was unfortunately what was comfortable: survival mode, pleasing somebody, being somebody other than myself to get their needs met. Their needs were more important than mine, all those kind of things. But I couldn't break those things until I recognized them myself. And I would rather help someone get through that faster than, like, I lost my whole 20s to mental health issues, really, because I was just learning, navigating, and just learning who I was out in the real world. Holy culture shock. And there was no one to shelter me anymore. There was no one to give me a delusion of what life is.
Totally. I hear that. It's interesting because as you talk about, narcissism and things like that, it's pretty surreal how you can get trapped into these places.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's subtle. It doesn't happen all at once. Because if you noticed it, you would run like heck the other direction.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you would.
It's the little thing.
Oh, I know what it was. One of my best friends said to me after she met him, she was like, Keri, he's just a normal dude. Like, in my mind, he was this amazing, oh my God. And my friend just goes, Keri, he's just a normal dude. And I'm like, oh, but when you're in those places, like, normal dudes, normal humans seem like the sun's shining out of their rear ends and rainbows are coming out of their other parts. And
well, if we're not meeting our own needs, this is what I've come to realize. We will really try to get that need met either through addiction, through somebody else, through something. And if we don't learn how to get that need met in a positive way from ourselves, we'll fall for anything. I know I could have a better relationship with my father growing up. So there was this desperate want to have a relationship with the male. And I tended to like older men because it was filling both those voids. And there's a want for intimacy. We all want that. But when we're desperate for it, we attract the wrong people because they can feed off of it. And it's really hard to see it at first, especially when they like love bomb the heck out of you and meet all of your needs. And you've never had your needs met before. And you're like, this is amazing. My needs are being met.
And financially, they're good for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're whining and dining you, and they're making these promises. I got a big old ring at one point that was a family heirloom, and I'm like, oh. And then the subtle things, then the change, then the story changed, or the little bits of criticism, or the little bits of this, or you gain some weight, or like just little subtle things that grow into bigger and bigger and bigger things. And then I had been through it enough that I finally got the strength to say goodbye. A little too late, 12 weeks pregnant. But I also found him cheating. So I've never shared that before, but that's actually what also happened around that time. And I was like, no, I mean, I'm not going to continue to feel rejected in a relationship. And I'm not going to do this alone and then let a man sweep in later and try to pretend to be the hero when they weren't there. You're either there or you're not there at that point. You're either in your child's life or you're not. There's not this in between that you get to play. And so I've never talked about this before, so I wonder if I'll keep this in this or not. But
bold move, Mama. Bold move, though, right?
Brothers. But if anything, I'm actually considering moving into helping women who are dating narcissists escape. So it's so funny that we're coming into that part of the discussion, because I actually just went through a training where a guy's like, you should be the narcissist nurse, how to recover from the infection of dating a narcissist. Because it is. It's an infection. Like it's like a little cough at first. It might be a little sore throat at first. And then you're like, what happened to me? And you're a holy wreck. And you're like,
17
where did I go?
years.
Because you lose yourself. And those relationships with a narcissist, they're so desperate for love that they easily find someone who's codependent or an empath. And we are full of love. We want to give love, but we can also lose ourselves in the process of meeting the other person's needs, because we think meeting their needs is meeting our needs. And if we never learn to meet our needs first, that's why we're going to keep attracting the wrong person. And so a lot of the work that has to go, like, for example, I got a woman through out of a narcissistic marriage in 12 weeks. We got her through. I kept her head on straight. Boom. We knocked it out. And he didn't see what was coming because he was cheating. And so he felt guilty. So we got in there and did what needed to be done. So she got what she wanted for her and her kids before he even had time to like recover, because I usually play the hero or the victim and nothing in between. So he's trying to be the more hero part of it or whatever at the time.
Because they can only handle it for a while too. They can only play that role for a little bit.
But she didn't finish the work. So the relationships didn't completely change in the future. So you have to finish the work on yourself, or you're just going to repeat the pattern. And I think for me, that was the real reality check of, this is a pattern. How do I break this pattern in my life? I'm the one creating it. I'm not going to blame my parents. I'm not going to blame my circumstances. I'm not going to blame the men. How am I going to take responsibility for this? And so I can change it. Because if I can change it, dang it, I'm going to change it.
Yeah, it's true. I wrote a post recently and I said, it was like a controversial post. I put it like controversial stance, right? Which is it takes two to tango. And a lot of people, when we say it takes two to tango, who play the victim role, who have been abused, who have been in these situations, will say, how dare you say that to this person? And I'm like, how dare I not? Because it is their only way out. Like, they got there for a reason. And if they don't realize that it took them to tango, they might not be this side, the other side of it, right? But at some level, even if we are in that situation, and I will say this and fully own it, even if we're in that situation and I can play the victim role of it, I can also say I manipulated, I controlled, I did shitty ass things, I said horrible things, I did all this, I did it too. Yeah. Right. In my defense, maybe, or in I didn't know, or feeling backed into a corner, or I still did that all. Right. And I still let agreements, and this is where it's a big one to me, that a lot of us who live in these situations or have lived in these, we let agreements go and like, oh yeah, it's okay. Just sweep it under the rug, just sweep it under the rug, just sweep it until you can't freaking handle it anymore. And you lose your bazookas at somebody. Yeah. Right. Well, but that's still me. Like I still did that. Right.
Yeah. My second marriage with kids. Right. So I have kids. You're going to try everything you can to make that work when kids are involved. And I remember having this checklist in my mind. Like, we will be okay if this happens. Didn't happen. Okay, we'll be okay if this happens. Didn't happen. And like, I went through that whole list and 6 years of counseling out of a 9-year marriage. And I left that marriage knowing peacefully, I know I had done everything I could do. And we had done work on ourselves, on each other, and it just came to the conclusion that a marriage is dead. When a marriage is dead, a marriage is dead. Now, I'm for if you can stay married and you can work it out, fantastic. But that's not the case all the time, because both people also have to want to drastically change. And the marriages where people have been married for 50 years, 30 years, I'm sure they reached heads at some point, because I think marriage also shows your weakness. And unless you have a partner who is willing to help support you through working through that weakness, and you're willing to help support them, and there's real change, but from the individual, not because I'm telling you to change, because the only person you can control is you. As long as both people are willing to grow in the same direction, you can probably resolve it. But if you start to realize you're going in two different directions, or like in my instance, you're in a house and you don't talk for an entire month, but you're living under the same roof, like, it's done.
Not okay.
The communication breaks down, and there's no communication to avoid conflict. That is conflict. Like, that's not a resolution either. So when no more compromise is happening, when there's no more resolutions, there's no point in continuing the war.
And there's also, it's so hard in those moments, I think, when we think, oh, just one more thing, or if we can, let me just try this, and you're going to stay for these kids and da-da-da. But at the end of the day, as hard as it has been, I'm sure for two of them, right? As hard as it has been to do that journey, I am so much more mentally sound, more in peace. And just like you, I went through this, post-traumatic stress and yada-da, I fell into a freaking hole last year. And at the other side of it, even in the hole, it was better. I didn't have to deal with,
it's your hole, right? It's not their hole that they made you dig for them, right? I mean, that's what it feels like.
Like, I'm not cycling on him 7 hours a day. That doesn't help me. That is like a waste of my space, right? Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, the amount of time I got back, the amount of energy that I get back, all of the things that I get back, because I'm not, in the place where it's like, I don't think I can do it. Truly, like, you're better off because you have more energy to put to all the things you actually want to be doing than trying to fix something that's just not going to work.
And you no longer feel broken. Because it's really not you that's broken. It's the relationship that's broken. And 100%. Once you can separate yourself from that, it's really helpful too. And when you can separate yourself from the emotions, because you're human, you're going to go through all sorts of emotions with it. and realize you're still going to be there standing in the end, that makes it better too.
Yeah.
But I think that it's brave. It's brave to leave. When it's abuse, it's abuse. Get the heck out. Just get out. It's better. It doesn't seem like it at the time, but it will be. And there are so many resources I have come to find out in your own community. You can just look around and you can find resources. If you're worried about being homeless, there are tons of things you can apply for to help you not be homeless. There are women's shelters, there are family shelters, there are crisis centers, there are people that want to help. But if you don't reach out, you're not going to be able to find that help. One client that I worked with was in quite a tricky situation where she was 8 or 9 months pregnant and the marriage was ending and it was getting dangerous. And she was on private property. So her getting out was tricky. And luckily, we found resources that even help women who are trapped in situations on private property to find a plan and a way to leave and to get out. So it's always possible. If anyone's listening that feels like, well, I can't get out, there's always a way. Keep reaching out, keep finding out. My brother works at a like a comic book gaming store. And over Christmas break, he was talking about how a woman kept coming in and dropping hints that she was in trouble. She was just subtly dropping them every time that they came, and they would notice her with a black eye, and they would notice this or that, but nothing actually happened in the store under the cameras that they could do anything about until one night something finally broke out between the two of them, and they caught it on camera, and they got the cops involved and got her out of that situation. But so it's always possible, but the trick is if you can catch it early. If you can catch things earlier on, you don't lose the time. And those of us that have been through it that want to help other people, whether it's with money or relationships or all of the things that block us from being who we want to be, we want to make that journey shorter for you. We want to work with you because we've had to build the bridge, and we're happy to help you build your bridge and already know the steps to get through, instead of wandering for years or having to say, like me, I lost my 20s to not knowing what to do because there was a lot of shame around mental health. There was a lot of misunderstanding. PTSD was only for war veterans. It wasn't for people who'd been through trauma yet. Like, we have a much better understanding of those things now, but then I didn't have the tools. So lean on someone, find someone. And if they're not the right fit, find someone else. Eventually you're going to find that fit and that jive. And also with that, I want to say that, like, when you find your whole self, and someone was just having this conversation with me today, you're not broken. And someday somebody's going to love you for all that you are. You're not going to be too much for them. You're not going to need to be ashamed of anything that you've been through. They will wholly and fully accept you for who you are. But you have to do that first. You have to love yourself first before anyone else can love you. Because how can you present yourself to someone if you don't even know who that is? If you don't know your best self, how can you give that to somebody else? And so I think that's part of the process as well.
Yeah, it's interesting as you say that, because I think in part of, even as we talk about resiliency, like in part of, like I was saying with self-love, like as we go through these places, and I have, like, there's a part of me that goes, like, if you're married, I almost started to challenge people, like, leave each, not like don't break up, but like live separately for a little while, like move away from each other for a month or two so that you actually figure out, because you get so entangled in each other that you actually totally lose yourself, most marriages, right?
Yeah.
And the truth is, you don't even know what you like or love or want. You don't know how to fully love yourself, because at the end of the day, here's the other piece that I have found. When you fall hard and you're single, you got to be the one that's going to hold yourself. When you're married or you're coupled, it's so easy to be like, oh my God, my life's falling apart. Let me just flow into your arms and hope that you can take this all from me, even in really nasty relationships, right? But they can't. And that's part of the nastiness of the relationship, is because they can't. They can't take it from you. They can't love you more than you do. They can't take the pain for you. They can't tell you what to do. Like, they can be there to love you, but they can't actually do the work for you. And I find that when I know I did it, and I see it in a lot of marriages, right? It gets so codependent in this way, even in healthy relationships, right? That we don't actually know how to hold ourselves in those places. And there's this part of me that's like, I wonder if every marriage actually took a break. And I don't mean it from a place of like, I don't want to be with you, but what if you left each other for a little bit so you found yourself again? Because I feel like, and I'm talking about the ones, like, I was 17 years together with somebody, but at the end of the day, when people have been together 20, 30, 40, 50 years, like, what would it be like if you went and found yourself again without that person? And then you had to learn to hold yourself. Because for me, learning to hold myself and learning to go through this on my own has been the most empowering. It's like there's nothing that can take me down now, because I'm like, well, I've been through abandonment. I've been through like my worst fears. I've been through, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm still standing here. I'm still talking to you.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
So whatever you got for me, world. Yeah, bring it on. I got it.
I got it now. I got it figured out.
I figured it out, and I've held myself, and I didn't have someone doing it for me, you know?
Yeah. Well, and some of the longest relationships, I know they have taken those kind of breaks that you're talking about. They'll honor, oh, she's going to go take her female retreat or her own vacation. Some of the healthiest, most successful people I know recognize I need my time so that I can stay true to myself and I can show up. And if there isn't room for that in a relationship, that's a sign it's not a healthy relationship, because there should be room to honor both of your truth. And that's supposed to be the most enriching part of the relationship, is honoring that other person's truth, knowing how to delight them each day by doing something that you know really brings them joy, and doing it just totally out of love for them with no expectation on what the outcome is. That's real, pure, true love. And also it's being able to be so blunt and honest with each other that whatever comes, you're willing to face and deal with it. And knowing that that honesty is coming from a place of someone who wants what's best for you. If there's deceit, there's lies, there's coddling, there's codependency, that's all deception. It's all really living a lie, because you're not honoring each other's truth. And I look forward to the day when I can find someone that I want to honor their truth too.
Right?
You know, like, you know what I mean?
I'm like, for me, I'm like, to me, the thing I'm looking for now in a relationship is the one that can handle conflict, the one that you can walk through conflict together. Right?
Because
the
you
one
put
that
a battle together. Yeah.
You can go and you can be like, you know what, this really sucks and I don't really like you right now, but I'm going to show up here anyway, you know, and I'm going to work through this with you because I love you and I value you and I respect you enough to sit here in the room and figure out how we do this differently. And
I've actually prepped my daughter about dating, that I'm like, okay, here are some scenarios you need to go through that I did not go through because I didn't take the time to do it. You've got to see how they react with their family and how they deal with conflict with their family. You got to see how they treat their mom. That's how they're going to treat you, or how they treat their sisters. That's how they're going to treat you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what they've learned. That's the pattern. But also, you get them in a situation, test them, piss them off, see how they react, see if they can handle the conflict. Because if you can get them through those tests and make them worthy of you, you know they're worth holding on to. And if they're not going to last. And so I kind of feel bad for whoever dates me next, because it's going to be there's going to be a series. I mean, I'm willing to build trust, but it's like I don't have room in my life for someone who doesn't add value to it anymore. I won't keep them in my circle. I just don't. I can't tolerate it.
Yeah, but then they come through. What I find is it's like one day to, you know, like off, because they, you know, when you're strong like we are, they feel it and they can't handle it and they bounce real fast.
Yeah,
I've had a lot of first dates.
Yeah.
I'm like, when I just look at them, I'm like dead set. I'm like, can you handle me?
Yeah.
Here it is.
This is who I am.
This, and this. Can you handle it? Oh no. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
Better to know. I'm a pretty strong woman.
Now, I may not put this in there, but I think it's funny when I'm hearing this whole thing that men are not getting laid enough in our society now. And I laugh because it's like, that's because you're trying to treat women like porn. We aren't porn. And the best relationships are from being together so long. You know each other's bodies and you know how each person functions sexually, and you become one. You can't do that
on a first date.
Well, and you can't treat people like a blow-up doll either. Like, it can't just be about you. And I think that we are a selfie culture to a point that it's a little scary. Like, there still is the give and take in a relationship as well, but there are healthy ways to do it. And that's what we're lacking. And that's why I think there's more single women now than there have been. There's more divorce than there ever has been, because people are forgetting that it's not just about you. Yes, find your truth. Yes, align, but do it in a way that you're ready to serve and to love. And don't compare. I think that's the big thing too. You can't compare your marriage, your relationship to somebody else. Is it healthy? Is it fulfilling you? Is it adding value to your life? Not, do you have the mansion? Do you have the Instagram account? Do you guys look good in pictures together? Like, do you have the car? Do you have no, you can't measure in that way. And those aren't the things that last anyway. We get to take our relationships, our knowledge, and our experience with us. That's it. The rest of it is going to be here and turn to dust. So if those aren't the priorities, then you aren't going to be satisfied. And I think you spoke to that, of having all the things, but not being whole on the inside. Being whole on the inside has no price. That value of yourself, having that light and knowing how to keep that spark in your eye, no matter who comes in and out of your life, no matter what you face, is not something you put a price tag on. And yeah, exactly. It's something nobody can take from you once you get in tune with that. So
once you get in tune with it. But it takes two to tango, and it takes looking at yourself first so that you can actually recognize and then own it and claim it and be like, I'm not willing to settle for anything less. And I think that is ultimately why there are more single women in the world right now, because we finally have just gone, I'm not willing to settle. Like I'm in a place, I'd rather just be on my own than be miserable with somebody, or be with somebody who isn't going to serve my needs and I can't serve his needs. Like I look at it like, you either rise up together or I don't want this relationship. But I look at that in my friendships too. Like my girlfriends, my clients, like if we can't actually meet and help each other rise up together, like what are you doing in my life?
Right. And I think it's interesting too, because like I'll notice that people will send very feminine men my way, because I'm very much in my masculine as a single mom. I'm very mama bear. And that's not what I need. I need a masculine man so I can soften. I need a masculine man to take that burden off of me a little bit. I want a real man's man. I want a protector. I want someone that makes me feel safe, who brings stability to my life. I don't want to be doing that for somebody. I don't want to be somebody's mom. That is not a relationship. And I don't need another child. Thank you very much. I mean, I love my children, but so be a man, or the man's man. Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for. So,
and ultimately, unfortunately, and I look at this from the other side of it, and having listened, and I've been on so many dates and listened to so many men. And my heart goes out to the men right now, because there's so many women, when we look at the polarity wrong, the polarity being off in relationships, where we've had to become more masculine as women. And this is due to the feminism, right? Like we became so much more masculine to like prove ourselves. Actually,
now just we're doing everything. What in the world?
But now we're doing everything, and the men haven't actually come up to the other side, or haven't actually, and because of that, they've become more feminine. And like, actually, the reality is, when we look at this from a global perspective, we talked about at the beginning, the fear, the lack, the scarcity, all these things. Well, they don't want men to be able to come and rise up against government. So the more that the government actually lets these men ultimately become more feminine and become more undesiring of fighting, because that is in the male, right? It's to protect and to fight.
Be the hero. They would love to be the hero.
But when we cut them as women and we castrate them, right? And then the government does and says, you're not enough and you're never going to make enough, and and they raise the bar and they raise the bar. And these men are poor, like they're just drowning in it all, truly. Right. And then we come in and we're like, you're still not enough. And I still have to meet you. And I've got to do your job and my job. And I got to It's freaking intense. Right. Yeah. And then it means that we have this weak society, which means that when government comes and says, hey, we're going to do these things, and there's no one to fight up against it, because a man's job is to protect us. Right. If we come back to like traditional roles, a man's job goes and protects so that us as women and the children can be home nurturing our children so that we raise the next generation. That's our job.
Yeah. I think if you want to change the world, start at home. Right. Start at home with your family. It's not out there somewhere. It is in the home, and the home and the family are completely under attack on all sides.
And always.
If you're a single parent, or if you're in a traditional family marriage or whatnot, like, understand that what you're fighting for is extremely valuable, and it's going to be the difference in the next generation of how we rise or how we fall. And if we don't learn from history, we're bound to repeat it. And we have some patterns right now in society of societies get prideful and successful about 200 years into America's almost 200 years old, and then they have a fall, and then it recycles again. And so we have to be careful to be humble with our success, and also recognize our part in what we're contributing to, or not contributing to. And so I agree with you on that as well. So I have never gone this long. Obviously, I've enjoyed talking with you, and we've hit some very interesting places I have not gone to before today. So
I'm glad we could go there with you today.
Yes. I'm enriching my life. I'm expanding myself. Where, if people want to come work with you on money or abundance or the things you're discovering in your journey, where can they find you? And do you have anything coming up that they could participate in?
I would love to. I'm actually starting to do monthly. So I talked about the financial manipulation clears. So we're starting to do some of those. There's no links or anything for it yet, but you can reach out to me. One of my favorite ways to actually communicate with people is on Messenger and Facebook. So find me on Facebook. I'm Keri Lynn, but actually I will put it in the show notes, I'm sure, but it's Keri Norley on like Keri Norley 1, facebook.com/Keri Norley 1 is I'm in the process, the divorce thing. And so I'm changing names. And so some things are a little bit messy right now. Some things are my married name. Some things are just Keri Lynn. And otherwise you can email me, Keri@kerilynn.love or find me on Instagram. I'm Keri Norley there still, but eventually I'll come to Keri Lynn. So depending on when you hear this on the podcast,
we'll put the correct links that we have at the time down below.
Well, you'll find me. If you want to find me, you'll find me. But the easiest way, if you can have an email, it's Keri@kerilynn.love. And I'd love to support you in any way. I'm so with you on the path of helping women to move through these really hard and tricky places. I have a lot of love for this work and helping to shift this generational conditioning, because it truly is the thing that stops us, and truly is from this place of, if we can shift it and we can have the awareness that this isn't true. Like, you have to start to realize that what you are thinking right now, if you are in a place that isn't where you want to be, no matter what it is, it's just the thoughts that are happening in your mind. And you've got to start realizing that whatever is happening in your mind, whatever patterns you're playing, whatever things that you're doing and repeating over and over again, they don't have to be that way. Not everybody plays that one. And so the more that you can have the awareness, the more that you can actually bring the change. And
you're creating your reality. We're talking about reality check, because the truth is you're creating it. You're responsible for what you're creating. And I hope we gave us some food for thought for you today on some different things to approach. And we've both been through it. We've been through the trenches. And if you need someone like that on your side, that's what we're about. And a lot of what the Resilient Mother is about is giving mothers the resources that they need, because mothers are the foundation of society. And mothers need more support to raise the next resilient generation, so that the world can be a better place. And thank you for that today. All right. Thank you for being here. We'll guys see you in the next episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Don't forget to subscribe.